So you guys should know by now that I'm a huge fan of the Enduring Legacy, and today it received an absolutely massive buff. It brought up its base critical hit damage from 1.7x to 2.3x, and this is massive at the end of the day for your final multiplier once all of your mods are installed. So before I was sitting at about like a 5.6x multiplier as my final number, and then now I'm up to 7.6, and I don't even have like the perfect crit damage passive. Mine's a blue, so it could be a little bit higher, but you get the idea. It is incredibly powerful. And then obviously I like to use this thing on Enzo where I get guaranteed crits. I'm just always doing 7.6x damage, and it is just so powerful. This thing is easily a top 3 weapon in the game right now. I think Thunder Cage, Afterglow, and this are basically like the top 3, and I don't think there's all that much competition. Since my last video on the Enduring Legacy, I've been able to max out its unique effect, and also I played around with a couple mods on it and messed around with some setups there. So I have slightly different mod configuration, but also I did a huge in-depth number breakdown, the difference between sharp precision shot and mental focus, so you guys can make the accurate choice for yourself. Because both of these mods do have strengths and weaknesses, so everything is going to be all theoretical, like perfect numbers, perfect damage situations, and all of that, but I'm going to give you guys all of the different caveats with them and how they can benefit you for either or. So before we get to the build, let's go ahead and jump into that difference first. First up, let's go over what I found with Sharp Precision Shot. So this mod is going to decrease your base fire rate by 20%, but as you hold on the trigger, you're going to be gaining fire rate and attack every 0.5 seconds up to 10 stacks. So you're going to end up with 60% attack at the end and also another 40% fire rate. So it ends up being a 20% fire rate boost in the end, which is really good because in this game, you're only allowed 1 fire rate mod per weapon, but this lets you kind of break that and get essentially a second purple fire rate mod. The blue one is 25 and all the other purples go up to 20%. So this is basically like adding a 20% one with extra damage. So this is a very powerful mod in that case. With the fire rate of this weapon, I was finding about every 5 to eventually 4 bullets was increasing the stacks of this mod. So by about like the 50th bullet in the magazine, you were at max stacks. So you end up with about 120, a little over, of the max buff, which is really nice. That's a very long time of shooting. But this thing in the hole with 171 rounds in the mag took about exactly 12 seconds. It was about 1 frame shy of 12 seconds in my editing software. So it shoots all of those rounds out fairly quickly, and you were able to get a lot of damage out in a pretty short amount of time. So in my spreadsheet, I was able to calculate the damage of every single bullet of this weapon with this mod and all of the different, steps it goes through as the buff is stacking, in addition to all of our other buffs at the same time. And essentially what it came down to at the end, your bullets are going to be hitting about 459,000. There's a little bit of rounding. The numbers I think in game that I was seeing were about the upper end of 458,000, and my calculateds were just at the bottom of 459. So they're only a couple fraction of a percent off, really not anything much at all. So I was basically right on there. And then essentially this ended up resulting in a total mag damage of 75,134,000. And once again, this takes 12 seconds to do. So you're looking at a DPS of about 6.2 million, at least here within the lab. Obviously, the different enemies you shoot, you're going to see different numbers, but on these that I was specifically shooting, those are the numbers that I came out with. So those are the main stats that you need to know for the Sharp Precision Shot when using it within this Enduring Legacy build that I'm using. But now let's take a look at Mental Focus and where that's sitting. Now taking a look at Mental Focus, this is going to decrease your base fire rate by 10%, but every shot you fire is going to increase your firearm attack for 2 seconds up to 150 stacks. So this is where this mod gets crazy, is in the later halves. You're going to be seeing some very, very large numbers through the final like 70 plus bullets of the magazine. The final 21 are all going to be at that max 150 stacks. And this thing is really easy to keep stacking as well, since you just need to shoot once every 2 seconds. You can fit rolls in between shooting, and it's really easy to keep that going no matter what's going on within the arena. I did the same thing with this mod and calculated the damage of every single shot at every single stage of its buff alongside all of our other buffs from our mods and the Enduring Legacy bonuses, its debuff and its firearm attack bonus. I calculated it all together, and with this mod at the end you're going to be seeing damage numbers of 639,000 roughly. I was a couple points off, another super small fraction of a percent off from my expected to in game. I'm assuming that's just 2 roundings and like enemy defense, weird stuff like that, but it ends up working out extremely well. It's spot on for my spreadsheets. And this in total, its entire mag gave me a total damage of 86,894,532. But on the downside, this mag took 16 seconds basically on the dot. This was also like 1 frame short of 16 seconds to dump the whole 171 rounds. So this ends up being a DPS of 5,430,908. Now, if we look at these two numbers against each other, sharp precision shots DPS versus mental focus, we can see mental focus's DPS is quite a bit lower by about 14% or so, but also its total damage is bigger by 14%. So this is where the trade-offs start coming in, and we can talk about here in a second. So before you start running off and saying that sharp precision shot is just hands down better, its DPS number is bigger than mental focuses, I have a couple things that you should probably consider a little bit. So the total damage, once again, is bigger on the mental focus. So this means on certain bosses, you could potentially one mag them, while sharp precision shot, you're gonna have to stop and reload, which would actually result in a slower kill time. So your DPS would actually be much lower than mental focus. So there are scenarios where mental focus can out DPS sharp precision shot. These numbers that you see are in a perfect world with absolutely nothing else. This is just straight 1 mag DPS numbers. Now, there's also some areas where sharp precision shot can be a little bit harder to maintain that perfect DPS number. This will stop anytime you let go of the trigger. If anything happens to you, you get bumped by an ad, the boss knocks you over, anything like that is going to reset your stacks. You're gonna have to restart piling them back up. While mental focus, you have that 2-second window. You can dodge, you can do all sorts of stuff. Sharp precision shot, you cannot do that. You cannot start firing in any way, shape, or form, or your buff is gonna go away. So there are definitely some areas where mental focus can keep out DPSing sharp precision shot. Also, the new Gluttony boss has a ton of health, and you really need to be babysitting all of the different like bubble machines and things like that. So there are areas where total damage is going to be better because you're going to need ammo less. Unless you're playing Enzo and you're constantly feeding yourself unlimited ammo, you're going to be running out much quicker with sharp precision shot, and you might not be able to output as much damage, and you're going to be waiting on ad spawns, while with mental focus, you could have fit in quite a few million more damage to the boss. And if you're going to be doing any sort of ad clear, like I use this weapon as my main thing on my Enzo, sharp precision shot isn't going to be quite as good for ad clearing just because that base fire rate is much lower than mental focus. So it makes it a little bit harder to just tap fire and pick off enemies here and there. You're going to need to be holding down the trigger and wasting maybe some shots between enemies and things like that. While mental focus, once again, you can just keep tap firing and stacking its damage. So mental focus is also a little bit better for ad clear. I'm not specifically trying to dunk on sharp precision shot right here, but I just want you guys to know all of these nuances between these two mods before you go out and make your decision, because these guns are hard to catalyze. They take a lot of resources and time to be doing so. You can't really be swapping between these two on a whim, at least for right now. That's something they're looking into. So I just want to give you guys all of the information necessary to make the accurate choice for yourself and what you're looking for out of this weapon. So which one should you choose? If you just want straight, I want to dump all of my damage as quick as possible, sharp precision shot is going to be for you. There's going to be a lot better in co-op where you're not always getting targeted by the boss and having to dodge all the time. It's going to excel in there. While with mental focus, if you're playing like Enzo and you need to be ad clearing, you want to do more total damage before needing to get ammo or anything like that, then mental focus is going to be for you, and you're going to be seeing a much bigger damage numbers. So you guys can do with that information as you will and make the choice for yourself. I personally will still be running mental focus on my Enduring Legacy just because I mostly use this on my Enzo, and it feels really good for mobbing and also bossing. And it just feels way more consistent. I don't like how slow Sharp Precision Shot feels at the start, and stacking it all up, having it getting interrupted and all of that good stuff. I'm constantly dodging, especially if I'm playing solo. So I personally still really do like mental focus. And at the end of the day, it's really not that big of a DPS decrease. It's about 14%, like I said, but you do get more damage per mag, which is really nice for one magging some bosses. Now that we have all of that information out of the way for this one slot on this weapon, once again, you can change between mental focus or sharp precision shot with this build. It's completely up to you. Once again, I just prefer mental focus. So now with this slot out of the way, we can look at the rest of the build. From here, we're going to be grabbing action and reaction for the base firearm attack. The recoil really does not matter whatsoever. Then we're going to be going into crit. This is why we're going to have such a big crit multiplier on this weapon, concentration priority, and better concentration. Then from there, we need our crit rate, so we get edging shot and better insight. The minus firearm attack really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Getting this crit rate up to pair with that really huge crit multiplier is incredibly important, so we want as much of that as possible. From there, we're going to be grabbing fire rate up. You want the blue one because it's going to give you the most. Like I said, you can only have one fire rate mod per weapon except for sharp precision shot. That's kind of the one exception. But from there, we can grab expand weapon charge so we can get that 171 rounds in the magazine from the base 115. And then from here, we're going to be doing fire enhancement so we can play into the unique ability a bit. The unique ability is going to give the damage that this mod is dealing. This is going to be like a separate number. Unfortunately, these bonus elements don't get weak point, but they do crit, which is really nice, and that's our main multiplier. So it is going to be really nice there. But its unique effect, the quenching at max 50 stacks, that ended up being right around like a 12% roughly damage bonus, multiplicative damage bonus at the end of all of our stuff, which was really nice. So that ended up playing in a huge role in our extra damage, especially towards the end of our magazines. And then finally, weak point sight. Weak point is just another multiplier, so boosting that up by another 35% is nice. You can do have aiming, but I don't think the 5% extra weak point is worth the 20% accuracy loss. This gun isn't the most accurate thing of all time, so we want to keep as much of that as possible. You're really going to feel yourself missing some of these fine, hard to hit weak points with that minus accuracy, so I personally just stick with the blue. For the passives on this weapon, you're really going to be looking for critical hit rate and critical damage with firearm attack and damage to Colossus. That extra base attack is really nice. You no longer need the fire attack on here since we're running the fire mod. We are able to replace that with damage to Colossus now, which ends up working really well for bossing. I did quickly just want to show off this weapon at its max unique ability level in case you were curious if you are still trying to build this thing and want to see what it's going to turn into. So no longer are you going to get a range drop off on this thing, which is really nice. It's also really helpful for like gluttony because you do a lot of damage at range with that guy. And then on hit, you have an attribute satisfied trigger rate. So that's going to be inflicting the burn, which is really nice. And when you get that burn, you're going to get a firearm attack of 11% added on with the rest of your firearm attack. And then every single bullet is going to be putting on the quenching debuff. So these are going to last 0.4 seconds. So essentially, if you stop shooting, these are going to go away, but they're eventually going to stack up to 50, and they're going to be decreasing the enemy's fire resistance per stack. And at the end of all 50 stacks, I was seeing a damage increase, like I said, of about 12%, give or take a couple percent. But yeah, hopefully you guys did enjoy this in-depth breakdown of the Enduring Legacy and which gold mod you should pick for this gun. Like I said, you can go either or on this. I personally just like mental focus and the total damage and just the feeling of the starting of the shooting process, just because it doesn't shoot nearly as slow as sharp precision shot when it's booting up. Also, it's way easier to maintain, which can be very helpful in so many scenarios in this game. Sharp precision shot just gets interrupted a lot and ends up being less damage, in my opinion. But once again, that is my opinion. So if you guys just take the information that I shared with you in this video apply it to your own game, pick which one is right for you, and you'll be all set. If you did find this informative and helpful, make sure you leave a thumbs up on it to let me know. Also consider subscribing for more First Descendant content. I'm currently working on our Valby build. That should hopefully be done within the next day or two. Yeah, thank you all for watching this far in the video. I really do appreciate it, and I will catch you all in the next one. See ya.